Hello, good morning. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming to AIWA UN panel on empowering women in finance, in inclusiveness, and in strong institutions. Today's panel is presented and moderated by our moderator, Yelena Nersesyan. She is an associate in the New York Office of Skadden Law. Ms. Nersesyan advises clients on all aspects of commercial real estate transactions and is actively involved in various mentoring activities and initiatives, including AIWA. She is a member of Central Park Conservancy Women's Committee and is co-chair of the Armenian Bar Association Scholarship Committee. Ms. Nersesyan has been honored as a Lawyer of Distinction in 2023, as well as a Rising Star by New York Metro Super Lawyers 2018, 19, 20, 21, and the Armenian Bar Association in 2019. So, Yelena, welcome our panelists. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Anna, for the wonderful introduction. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for a very important and meaningful conversation. I'd like to thank the United Nations Committee on the Status of Women and the Armenian International Women's Association for providing us with this far-reaching platform. Today we have a panel of extraordinary women representing a wide range of industries, from finance, media, to arts and entertainment, to family office, hospitality, and more. Some of our panelists traveled long distances to be here. Before we dive into our conversation, I want to note that at the end of the session, we'll have 15 minutes for questions and answers. I invite the members of our audience and our online viewers to submit questions. Please meet our panelists. Christina Ayanyan is the youngest executive producer and host in NASDAQ's history. She pioneered the Live from Market Site series. Christina also represented Miss Universe Armenia in the 71st annual competition in 2023 and was recently named to Forbes 30 Under 30 class of 2024. Congratulations, Christina. Next, we have Sona Hovanesyan. She is a highly regarded arts manager with diverse background in festival management and creative direction. Sona's negotiations brought to Armenia the greatest musicians and orchestras of the world. Sona traveled all the way from Armenia to be here. Thank you. We have Renee Nalbandian as one of our next panelists. She is the managing director in Bank of America's Global Strategic and Sustainable Investments Group, responsible for making equity investments on behalf of the bank and drive financial, strategic, and impact returns. Welcome. And last but not least, we have Lucina Yeremian. She is an international development professional with over 2 decades of leadership experience. Additionally, she serves as a senior advisor at Yeremian Projects, one of the largest family businesses in Armenia, renowned as the national champion in agriculture, hospitality, restaurant business, and vocational education. Lucina traveled from Washington, D.C. to be here today. Thank you. Welcome, ladies. And first, I'd like to talk about your professional journey. So if each of you could please tell us about your professional journey, how you started, and tell us about your role in the existing company. And we can start with Christina.
Thank you, Yelena. I'd also like to echo what you said. Thank you to AIWA for having us and organizing this panel. Thank you to the UN for representing Armenia at the CSW, and thank you to all the guests who are in person and joining us virtually. My journey in finance and media is a little unconventional. I grew up watching my mom's videos as a broadcast reporter in Armenia, and back then it was VHS tapes. And I remember I wanted to be just like her when I grew up. One of my favorite shows that I used to watch on Saturday mornings was Teen Kids News on ABC at 11 a.m. on Saturday mornings. And I see smiles, I think you know the show. And they had an open casting in New York City. So the next day, my mom and I jumped on a bus at 5 a.m. to New York City in the middle of winter, stood in line around the block, around 3 blocks that circled around at Madame Tussauds, and I finally had the chance to interview and to be in a real broadcast studio for the first time and interview for the position of a reporter on Teen Kids News. But they didn't call me back, and I didn't get the role. But I was very persistent, and I was writing them emails, phone calls, handwritten letters. I pitched them stories from my point of view as a youth, as a 14-year-old, what I would like to see on the show. And finally, they gave me the opportunity to come to their studio in Westchester. That was life-changing for me because they had me film one segment as a test run, and then they kept calling me back and calling me back to film different youth-driven segments. That year, I was receiving an award from the United Kingdom, from the Duke of Edinburgh, called the Duke of Edinburgh Award, which is an award for young leaders. And I thought it would be a great idea to feature this award on Teen Kids News. So I pitched the idea to the royal office. I pitched the idea to my producers, and both parties agreed, and I organized everything, and with my mom, of course, and we flew down to Tennessee. And my first one-on-one interview was with His Royal Highness Prince Edward. And after that, my passion skyrocketed for media and storytelling and empowering others, especially women. Fast forward to my college application process. Like any teenager, I wanted to switch things up a bit. I loved math, I loved finance. I come from a family of mathematicians as well, so I decided to shift gears a little bit and go study finance. When I graduated, I didn't have a job. It actually took me over 8 months to find a job. Countless interviews. I applied to over 150 jobs. I had a spreadsheet. I had maybe 75 interviews. I got called to the 4th, 5th final round of those interviews, maybe a handful of those, and then I would always get cut and I wouldn't get the job. And so that persistency from my 14-year-old self carried to my adulthood. And that's when I realized it was really a numbers game. Finally, I landed my first role at NASDAQ as an analyst. And that was particularly rewarding for me because when I was applying for internships, I didn't even make the pass the resume round twice at my current firm. And then I got hired as a full-time role. I got hired for my first full-time role. So I continued in the typical finance route. I was an analyst, senior analyst, associate. Then I switched over to the client engagement team. And that's when I really got to combine 2 of my passions. I pitched an idea to start a show called Live from Market Site, where we interview CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, unicorn companies, and that passion for storytelling and numbers got to be combined into my current role. And that's when I had the honor and privilege to interview over 201 companies last year. We reached an audience of over 71 million, and my goal is to only grow it from there.
Amazing journey, and thank you. Persistence is the key.
Absolutely,
we know that.
Absolutely.
Okay, Sona, please go ahead. Very nice to be here. Greetings, everyone. I was born in Armenia, in Yerevan, and I lived there. I traveled a lot, of course, because of the major which I took for me. That's a cultural diplomacy. That's a soft power which helps to change the world for good, for a better place. And doing arts festivals, that's a special mission. Actually, festivals are not a concert series. That's a conceptual institutional structure which changes, which influences all sphere of life in the city, in the country. It affects education, society. And the festivals were founded after the Second World War for bringing peace to countries, to fighting countries. And it was my privilege when I was still young, 25 years old, graduate of conservatory as a pianist, to become a co-founder of one of the greatest festivals in Europe now, which is in Yerevan. It is called Yerevan Perspectives. And I worked with major celebrities and great artists and orchestras, such as Vienna Philharmonic Orchestra, Royal Concertgebouw, Berlin State Orchestra. We had La Scala, many of them in Armenia, and also concerts outside of Armenia. That was a very special journey. If not the fanatism, actually, and the dedication, we had never been able to do that because Armenia was on still ruins of Soviet Union collapse in 2000. And we started to dream so big.
we started to dream about the festival which is relevant to Edinburgh Festival. So I was blessed to be part of the structure which made dream to come true. And now, on the 25th year, which we now in 2024, we have such an extraordinary history to share, and the fearless and risks and all factors that brings us to the huge success. So that's a historical, that's a fantastic country, geographically located amazingly. And we try to change and open to a new page in economy of the country. And in parallel, we founded another festival, AIWA, which is totally for pop music, and we have in Armenia some pop musicians like 50 Cent, and we're planning to do more. And we're making Armenia a name in entertainment between East and West. So that's a historical, that's a fantastic country, geographically located amazingly. And we try to change and open to a new page in economy of the country. And my mission now to combine arts, business, and philanthropy, which is becoming a new fantastic solution for many artists and musicians and the whole society. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Art has no boundaries, that's for sure. Thank you for doing that. Please go ahead, Renee.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So great to be here and honored to speak with you. My name is Renee Nalbandian. I'm a proud Armenian American, born and raised in New York City, and I studied at NYU in finance and economics. So I took a very traditional finance route, really influenced by my parents, who both really love numbers and business. And so I really started my journey in Bank of America in investment banking. That's where I had my full-time initial position. Did that for 2 years, and then primarily was in global corporate strategy at Bank of America, where we really managed at the top of house level everything from things that are coming up in the market. A lot of it is really driven by what does the board want to see, what do the board of directors care about in the world, and how do we drive Bank of America forward. And fast forward to 2020, the really height of the pandemic, there was a lot of social unrest, in addition to a lot of other issues going on in the world. And our CEO at the Bank of America decided to start an initiative, a $1.3 billion initiative that really focuses on how do we drive change, how do we drive racial and gender societal change in the US. And so we were part of the group that really started the framework of how do we invest in venture capital, because we saw a lot of opportunity there of supporting small businesses, which we'll touch upon later, specifically minority-led and women-led businesses. So today we have over $550 million committed to over 150 venture capital funds. This is probably one of the largest initiatives that any corporate institutional investor has taken, and it's something that we want to drive forward for other corporates to really take influence. So a lot of the responsibility is now on us to how do we drive impact, how do we bring that responsibility and showing, you can create financial returns as well as impact returns. So happy to talk about that later.
Thank you so much. Looking forward to hearing more about this initiative.
Thank you everyone for having me here, and thanks to all of the organizers for making this event happen, and thanks to all these beautiful ladies as my panelists and moderator. So my name is Lusna Yeremian. I was born in Artsakh, in a remote village, and I was raised in Yerevan in the midst of the collapse of the Soviet Union during the First Karabakh War, and during the blockade, when it was with all the misery and struggle. However, that was then, when I was a child, I decided to change this paradigm and add whatever I called back then, I didn't even know the terms, the 4 Ps. And up to this day, I use this as my mantra, and I just leave this 4 Ps to my children. Those are perseverance, patience, purpose, and perspective. And during my professional journey, I had 3 stops and 1 station. And the 3 stops are very much interrelated to each other, though At the first, from the first glance, he was saying, like, what is she talking about? So I started my professional journey as a teacher. And I was in my 20s, very full of energy, full of, not wisdom, but full of inspiration to give something to the kids, to the new generation. And I was, up to now, I'm surprised how the manager of the school really made up this decision to have me working there. But when I'm looking back at this experience, I clearly understood what I did that. I was hungry for knowledge. And the only way to get this knowledge is by identifying the gaps in your knowledge, the gaps in your experience, in your expertise. And the only way to identify these gaps is by teaching. So I learned a lot from my kids, and up to now we're in very close relationships. My second station was when I decided to work for the government as a public servant. That was then that I decided that I need to do something to give back to my country. I worked for the Ministry of Economy, for Finance, and I did my best to bring whatever I learned throughout my education, Western education, to the government. And the third and the final stop was when I decided to go to bring more meaningful impact on a global scale and become an international development specialist, having leadership roles in institutions such as the World Bank, UN agencies, Millennium Challenge Corporation, and USAID. But throughout all these stops, there was one station that's more prominent for me, which is my family, which really speaks close to my soul. It's the family business that we run together with my brother. It's the UMM project. Like moderator said, the national champion in agriculture, in hospitality, and in vocational education. And that's when you truly put all your energy, all your thinking, all your expertise, not only to create something for your family, but to leave long-lasting values for the generations to come and for the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Excited to learn about the impact that the UMM project is making. So thank you so much for sharing your stories. As successful women in your respective industries, tell us about some of the obstacles and challenges you have faced, right? Including cultural norms or stereotypes, and how you overcame those challenges and obstacles. And we can start with you, Christina.
I am a woman in a male-dominated field, as are all of us, and I was faced with an additional challenge. I was also the youngest on my team, and I still am. Of 2 women on my team when I started. And I learned very quickly that if you don't have a seat at the table, get the supplies and build the table. But I also learned be hungry. I was like a sponge, and I still am. I love learning from my mentors, both men and women. And I think it's also important to highlight men as our allies, but also it was important for me when I was starting out, especially in my firm, I've been there for 4.5 years, seeing women in leadership. Our CEO, Adina Friedman, is a female CEO, and she started as an intern, worked her way up, and now she's CEO. And hearing that story, that gives me hope as the next generation. One of my first managers, who's our senior vice president, global head of listings, she has been a champion for women within NASDAQ. And I find myself walking their path and paving a path for other women who are going to come in the next generation. They've lifted me up, and I feel like now it's my duty and my responsibility as I work my way up to reach back and help the other women up. And I think that's how we'll reach financial parity. Women still make 77 cents to every man's dollar, and that number only goes down as we factor in other minority groups. And we need to do something about that. And I think that's why we're here today and why we need women in leadership.
Thank you. But just a follow-up question. But when you speak to these, senior women who have gone through this process and are successful, do you see any difference in their path versus your path because you're so young? Or do you feel like you still have to overcome similar obstacles?
I definitely think that as women, especially in male-dominated fields, we have to work extra hard. Sometimes it feels like we have to do double the work of our male counterparts just to feel like we're being seen and heard. And what I've also learned that my female mentors within the firm have taught me is make your work visible, internally and externally. You have to be the champion for yourself, and you have to advocate for yourself. No one will see the work that you're doing if you don't show it. And I think as women, sometimes we feel like we're showing off, or we don't want to come off too boastful, or we're going to look arrogant. That's not the case. Even if we do, men always talk about how much money they're making. Why don't women talk about how much money they're making? Why is that such a hush-hush topic? We should be proud, and we should be proud of how far we've come. We've come a long way, and I think we have a long way to go.
Thank you. So, obstacles? Well, I love speaking about positive things only. And the sector for classical music was non-profit and education, and men with whom we were dealing were major sponsors. And I have done the largest ever possible in the history of my country fundraising, and that was all good with men that time. But the new platform we founded for pop music, it's money generating platform, and I deal with investors, I deal with partners. Its conditions were totally changed. And I see that generosity. I see the problem that why this huge platform is being governed by a female. And probably that's the Oriental kind of thinking. But now it's a very specific process of overcoming that. And there are men who are very supportive. But there are men who think that that's not your job to do. I mean, it's a day to be very honest and to speak openly. I would never say that in any other environment. But still, the strength which we possess, that's huge. And that's the decision-making power. And yes, sometimes we need to meet men that's stronger than us. And that's very rare.
Well said.
So, we are working for good.
Thank you.
So also being in the finance industry, it's definitely a male-dominated industry. They say the deals aren't really done at the office, they're done at the golf course. And so what you do around that is, well, first I faced that pushback, starting even from NYU. When I decided I wanted to pursue investment banking, already my colleagues were like, you don't need to do that. It's too demanding for a woman, and you're going to be stuck in the office too long, you're never going to get married, all of that stuff. So what I did was turn all of that negativity into an opportunity to prove them wrong, and to more importantly show my worth, because that's what really it comes to at the end of the day. So yes, you do work harder. That's unfortunately, but fortunately what it is, because it takes you a step further. So in the first few months of investment banking in my early 20s, I spent every single weekend in the office, not really doing the work, but learning, how does this bank make money, and how am I going to do that? Like, how am I basically going to prove my worth? And all of that, to me, hopefully continues to pay it forward, because all of that is really like providing trust. You know, when you're going to the office, when you show up to the table, when they kind of give you a little bit of a seat, you say one or two things and they realize, wow, you've actually done your homework. And then slowly but surely, you end up at the table. And then there are times what you really want to see is your bosses not even to be at the table, because you're able to lead conversations on your own. And so really that's what it comes down to.
Thank you. And I agree with you about golf and tennis, especially in New York City. If you're a career woman in New York City, when I meet younger women that I mentor, I always advise them to pick up golf and tennis, because a lot of the deals are happening, you know, on the tennis court or golf course.
This is a very interesting question, and it never gets old. But I don't want to talk about my experience nowadays, because I think maybe I'm blessed enough not to really experience that bias. But I want to discuss about the experience that I had when I was just entering into career back in 90s, early 2000s as a young woman in Armenia, and like we all mentioned, in a male-dominated society. And the first thing that I experienced was this implicit bias and very tender skepticism about whatever you say, how you behave, how you present your ideas, and how you push these ideas to the realization. And the first really big experience that I had was in a department when there were 12 men, nice people, were friends, PhD, economics, law, engineering, etc., and me, the only woman, social scientist in this room. It was very challenging, and looking at their faces when I would talk, that would just hurt my heart. But then they spoke up and they said, you know what, there are certain industries where women, it's better for you to stay away because it's not up to your, mildly put, mental capacity to absorb it. And you are very busy and you can be really good in your houses and your homes, cooking and bringing and keeping the fire, the house burning, metaphorically, right? And I agreed with them. I said, that's a great point, and you are absolutely right. But think about this. We talk about the mental capacities being different, which I agree, it's different. It's not good or bad. It's not weak or strong. It's different. Those are different wires, different vibes, different levels, different understanding, different emotions. And instead of looking at us down and making this criticism as much as possible, let's look and let's work, let's think about these differences in terms of making synergies for the impact, for the better impact. And just imagine a world where women and men look at the same thing from different perspectives, but jointly trying to make the difference even more powerful. And there are two strategies that I used throughout my career up to now. One of the strategies to overcome this challenge, one of the strategies is be good, as good in your profession that you become irreplaceable. And now you would say, oh, there is nothing like that. No one is replaceable in this world. I would agree with you if you have an argument as a knowledge, experience, expertise can be replaced everywhere in every industry. However, there are certain elements based on my experience from business, from international development, from public work, from education that are very hard to replace. These are grit, stamina, loyalty, this intrinsic urge to create something, to run with you, to make this idea happen, this leadership skill that makes, people running after you and you don't know how it happens. So those are the things that are indeed irreplaceable. And the second strategy is seek for help, seek for support and mentorship when you need it. And we Armenians, me including, I was not doing that. And I'm blessed and I'm lucky enough to have 3 people in my life as mentors who changed this paradigm, who changed my trajectory and added lots of value in who I am now. And these 3 people happen to be women. And now what I'm doing, I'm trying to give it back to the young ladies who need it most. So that's from my experience. Thank you.
Thank you. And we are going to talk a little bit more about the power of mentoring and networking a little later. So, Rania, my question is for you. I know from our conversations that Bank of America has amazing initiatives in place. So, can you tell us how Bank of America supports women both in the United States and globally?
Bank of America makes meaningful contributions to women, and it starts within the company and outside of the company. So that's the perspective I'll take. Starting inside the company, 50% of our 200,000 employees are women, 40% of our managers are women, and over 30% of the board of directors are women. This is just a handful of companies in the S&P 500 that can also say these stats.
Those are great numbers. Yeah.
They're good numbers, and I think they can be better. And so, when you think about why is that the case, they invest a lot of time ensuring that women have a place to work and to feel empowered and to really have a career there. It's not just about having a job. And so what does a career mean? It means you have to follow through around everything that your life entails. When you get married, when you have children, when you need to support the elderly family members and become a caregiver, there are a lot of resources that Bank of America has invested in, including having one of the most progressive parental leave, not only for mothers, but also for fathers, because they realize that to have a family, you need both parents always there, to support the children. And so those are items that, that really is important at the employee level. And now expanding to outside employees, there's a lot of work they do around that. And it's really separated into 3 categories. It's around education, it's around mentorship, and providing capital to women entrepreneurs. On the education side, there's a collaboration that Bank of America Institute has done with Cornell University. It's the only online Ivy League program that any emerging woman entrepreneur, by emerging meaning you have a startup idea, you don't know how to really put it together. What is your business plan? What is your financial plan? How do you seek the legal structure of creating this company? This course that we've provided for free for over 100,000 people already, and you can go and apply online as well. This is something that Bank of America finds very important. And that's on one side for the education. On the mentorship, we have a lot of global initiatives that we do, including partnering with a company called Kiva, which is an online crowdfunding microloan software. Essentially, for every $1 that Kiva does, Bank of America also commits $1, so there's a 1-to-1 matching. And then most importantly for my day-to-day job, it's providing capital at the equity level. And so we'll talk about a little bit later why equity capital is important. But really, of the 150 funds that we've committed to today, over 60% are women-led. Why is that important? 2 reasons. One is that only 2% of women receive venture capital funding, although women are growing businesses at the fastest level that we've ever seen. And why we need women at the top of the allocator level is to really ensure that women support women, because that's naturally what ends up happening.
Christina, in your opinion, how can financial institutions leverage platforms like yours to engage more female entrepreneurs?
I think, marketing. Part of my job function is marketing, and I think it's important to market yourself internally and externally. If you're a female founder, invest in media opportunities. That will open up new doors to new investors. If you're a woman working in corporate America, you need to make yourself visible internally to get that raise, get that promotion. And I think it all comes down to storytelling. We are writing our own stories, and who better to tell our own stories than ourselves? And that's why we're here.
Do you find that it is important for women to engage, third-party consultants like branding specialists, social media, content specialists to sort of elevate their visibility?
Absolutely. Actually, there's a statistic that shows 25% of guests interviewed in mainstream media, that can be print, broadcast, news, are female. 25%. How many women are in this world?
Yeah.
Right? And so I feel like being a producer and host now, and working my way through media, I'm in a position to change that. And how I'm doing that is working with female-led venture capital firms to highlight female founders, working to highlight Women's History Month, Women's Entrepreneurship Day at the United Nations, actually. So it's initiatives like that that are needed to eventually go back to what I said on Saturday. We are not female CEOs, we're CEOs. We're not successful female entrepreneurs, we are successful entrepreneurs. We're not female athletes, we're athletes. And how do we get there? Forums like this, women in leadership positions, helping each other up, networking, to eventually get to that North Star.
Thank you. So now, next question is for you. As a female entrepreneur in the arts and entertainment industry in Armenia, what specific financial tools or programs or initiatives helped you get where you are today and sort of bring your vision to life?
That's fundraising, as I said, for classical and educational events, and of course when the when the trust is rising and reputation is there, because 2 decades is a quite profound period of time to prove what you have done and what is your vision and mission, and high quality people are joining. Some governmental forces are joining for specific projects which are on historical importance for your country, for the image and for touristic flow. And also private sector. I think one of the most important parts of the financing was private sector. Of course, in the United States, when I hear you all and where I live, it's different. It's totally different. I would say maybe 80% difference what I hear. So the circumstances are different, and private sector, personal contacts, friendship, it's everywhere the same, but mainly on it in our environment. So I think every negotiation, I remember some of them were like, box rings when you are winning or you are down totally. And, people behind, there is a team behind, and you are responsible for them. You are responsible for the success, for their trust, because in our world, very much important employees who work for you, they may go through hardship. It's not that they got this job and they are loyal until they are being paid and they will leave. No, that's totally ideological community. And if even you don't pay, they will stay because they believe in the success. There is a huge difference, and it makes you feel even more responsible for them, and you can't lose that that battle. And yes, private sector, selected businessmen and businesswomen, and relationship and trust, that's more human values, I would say.
Thank you. And do you feel that you receive support from the Ministry of Culture or sort of other governmental institutions?
That's for specific projects.
Mission and what you bring to the world.
For specific mission, for instance, we are just about to receive a grant for covering all marketing expenses for Andrea Bocelli concert in Armenia, which I'm very happy to say is going to happen in September. And Ennio Morricone tribute with his son Andrea Morricone. Those are specific projects that the Committee for Tourism is sponsoring. And I believe we are creating a big and large and high quality community of private businesses too, and also from abroad, from diaspora too. They are joining, which is, I'm very happy to say.
That's wonderful. That's really wonderful. Thank you so much. Lucinda, I want to sort of go back to the business, Yeremian Project. I know you have done so much during your career, but sounds like the family business, Yeremian Project, is your baby that you really care deeply about. So can you tell us what was it like to start a company, like restaurant business in Armenia 20 years ago, and how the landscape has evolved since then?
Thank you for this question. So, it was very hard, very challenging, and my brother, who is the founder of Yeremian Project, and myself helping him throughout this very inspirational and full of obstacles journey, he used to say, and he uses this motto up to now, and I will say it in Armenian, the work starts with a dream, with a vision. If you have a vision, and if you put all your energy, hard work, and your resilience, your adaptability, if you're a people person, if you have the values, then you will definitely get there. And this is what we've done. And he was just 12 years old when he had this vision to change, to transform, to revolutionize the food industry in Armenia. Just 12 years old. It was too young, and I was 14, and I was just supporting him. And outside, I mean, when parents were not looking at us and just thinking that maybe something is, these kids are somehow crazy. In the midst of this war and everything, they're just doing breathing with this. And it happened because it starts with a vision, and we made it. We could get there, and now we have 25 businesses within Yeremen projects, more than 2,500 employees, 4 domains: agriculture sector, hospitality, restaurant business, 17 restaurants in Yerevan, a wide range of concepts from high-tech cuisine to casual, national Armenian, Mediterranean, up to burger joints. And we also have, we run Academy of Culinary Arts and Hospitality. And here I want to add something, if you don't mind, dear Yelena. I want to speak about the education. And on Saturday, Silva, nicely during the AIWA meeting dinner reception, she said something that was stuck in my head. She said these golden words: education is liberation. And I love it, and education is liberation, it's power, it's everything actually. And if when we educate women, we know for sure that we educate our future. And that's one of the reasons that we thought that on top of all these successful businesses, we also need this academy, Yeremen Academy, the first in Armenia and maybe in the region, that will prepare young and talented professionals in culinary arts and hospitality that would serve others as well. But here I would like to add one more thing to education. On top, and maybe this is a paradox, a small paradox that I observed and I want to share with you. In Armenia, we have what we have in Armenia, lots of educated women, keen to learn, keen to go and change the world. And I find that it's not enough. And after giving a thought, I was like, oh, maybe there is this enabling environment, that it's not there. And what is an enabling environment in our context? Are those the policies? Are those the strong partnerships? Are those these advocacy that we kind of think and look at skeptically in Armenian environment? Or the combination of all this? So,
or mentoring, right?
Or mentoring.
As someone who grew up in Armenia,
exactly.
I'm sure things have changed now, but mentoring or networking was not exactly the first thing that people talked about, especially with their daughters.
Absolutely. So we need to think about it and work on this from our vantage points and from our really close interaction. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Renee, I just want to go back to some of the interesting programs and really empowering programs that Bank of America is offering. So can you talk about how technology and online education be leveraged to reach women, especially in underserved areas or remote areas, and do some of your programs reach these women?
Yeah, absolutely. And I really echo Lucina's point. I think it's important to have education, but it's important that it's encompassed with a little bit additional enablement, with mentorship, with capital as well. And so just going back to the Cornell program, having something virtually is very important, because as long as you have internet access, you have this wide depth and availability of resources. And I think more and more women and more just anyone in general should be taking advantage of that. There are a lot of online courses that are for free, available online to you. It's something that you can do on a weekend, just have a little bit of knowledge gained, because it just drives a little bit more innovation. It changes the way you think about things. When you wake up in the morning, you have new thoughts, and new thoughts is what really spur new ideas, new dreams, new goals, and then you make those goals happen. So education is really key to a lot that we sometimes underappreciate, especially in America, because we might feel like we have too much of it at some point. So it is a very interesting thing to make sure you're activating it. And so I wanted to touch about not only about Cornell, which is a 6-course 2-week program for each. So there's 6 ideas, and each one has essentially 2 weeks on financial planning, 2 weeks on legal planning, 2 weeks on business planning. And at the end of it, you get a certificate as well as another wide availability of resources for grant funding, or really how you can apply for loans going from there. The second point that we do a lot of is called Breakthrough Lab. It's an accelerator program that we have at Bank of America that coincides a lot with our venture capital funds, where sometimes we even take people who've graduated from the Cornell program. If they have an idea, we have a one-on-one mentorship for the next 6 months with someone from Bank of America to basically allow them to execute on those ideas and help them with their pitch deck, help them with networking other people, other potential investors. So yeah, those are just some examples that Bank of America has.
That's fascinating, and I really hope that women who are, or men, but women who are watching this session are taking advantage of all this information you're providing, and at least we'll go and check out the information on the website. Christina, you represented Armenia in the Miss Universe competition. Thank you for that. Everybody was very excited about that. Tell us why you decided to participate and how your experience influences your approach to the importance of diversity and inclusion.
Absolutely. It was truly an honor. It was my dream since I was a little girl to represent Armenia at Miss Universe. But pageantry really started as a summer activity for my mom and I. And it was just something we would do together once a year over the summer. And as I grew older into my teenage years, it really became a platform and a microphone for me to advocate for the causes that I care about, and particularly for the Armenian cause and women's empowerment. I remember when I was 7 years old watching Miss Universe, I didn't see Armenia represented. I was actually the 5th Miss Armenia to compete at Miss Universe, and Miss Universe has been going on for 72 years. And
I have noticed that too many times.
Yeah,
watching the competition.
Armenia is not represented, and it wasn't until these past 5 years that Armenia has been represented. And I came through a lot of obstacles. I was always told, you know, you're not qualified enough to compete at Miss Universe, because Miss Universe was traditionally for the tall, supermodel-esque type girls. I'm 5'2". I was probably the shortest Miss Universe contestant that ever competed. But my national director, who is also a powerhouse in Armenia, she gave me the opportunity to represent Armenia. And she always knew it was my dream, and with all of the political turmoil happening in Armenia, it really gave me a microphone to advocate for Armenian causes, for Artsakh, to a global audience, to an audience who may not know what Armenia was. I went into these competitions with maybe less than 10 countries, knowing what Armenia was, where it was located on the map, what language do you speak in Armenia, to now over 150 countries, 150 new people, who then it's a ripple effect. They're sharing their stories with Miss Armenia and opening up Armenia and teaching about Armenia to their peers and their audience. And it's just been the greatest blessing on a global scale.
Thank you for that. Thank you so much. Sona, I mean, you have been in the position of leadership for many years now. Tell us some of the lessons you have learned about what does it mean to be an amazing leader, a leader that attracts the employees. It sounds like you have very loyal employees who believe in your vision. Just tell us about the lessons you have learned over the years, and what should others be, you know, paying attention to when they are in these positions of leadership.
Right, that's my beloved topic. I love leadership. When Christina was saying everything comes from childhood, from the family, I remember since when I was a kid, I was going to yard and playing and organizing and helping to support some kids who were like weak, and to defend their rights. It's coming in genetics. And leadership, I understand that's a responsibility. That's, you know, top manager is not the leader, is not the owner of the company. Top manager is doing its tasks, but the leader is responsible for the manager too. And if they fail, that probably the leader's failure. And it's a very specific and different areas to approach. And leader is protector. is a caring person. I remember Emma's book, Caring Formula of Business. I love that expression. It's care about people who work for you, it's their protection, and you know, there were problems we were solving. I used to not to share with the staff. Normally I had to, but I was solving and then letting them know, because they could be hurt, they could be depressed, scared. So I feel as a protector of the team, as a main problem solver. Sometimes I need their support too, it happens. When I need their encouragement, their motivation. But normally there is a motivator and is a decision maker. Sometimes I decide things that never ask anyone, because I know 100% that's a true decision. But there are times we decide together. It's creative process, but it's come from gems, I think.
Okay, it's genetic.
Yes.
Do you ladies have anything to add to what makes a great leader? I mean, each of you are in a leadership position in your own way.
So once, I'll add.
Maybe I'll add a couple of words about how to expose the leadership talents in yourself and bring the social change to the society. And I'll tell you a story from our organization. So back in and this is a story that I've been told by one of my World Bank colleagues who is working on Armenia. And she knew that we have this family business, and she knew that it's successful, it's quite big. But one day after the mission in Armenia, she came to my office and she said, I knew that you're very good, but I didn't know that you have changed the social norms in Armenia in terms of gender equality. And I said, okay, which project are you talking about? And she said, we had a meeting in the World Bank office in Armenia, and they were talking about you changing the norms of attendance of the restaurants back in early 2000s by families. And the story is the following. In the early 90s, when we're just working on this idea of having national Armenian restaurants in Armenia, back then, maybe some of you remember, if you lived in Armenia, back then, not only there weren't many restaurants or the places where you would go and have a nice time, all the restaurants were for men only. Men would go there with their friends, their buddies, have nice time, leisure, drink, eat, while the women would stay at home, take care of their children and of the family. And this was just 20 years ago, not even 100 or 200 years ago. So those were the traditional gender roles. And even being very small back then, I mean, just teenagers, me and my brother, we clearly saw that there is a problem here. We didn't even have this world view, how the world is looking at this. We didn't even know what gender equality is or how it could be different. Maybe this is the role that we were. So, and the first restaurant when our company opened, it was for families. And only families could attend. It was hard, it was challenging, and it came with lots of, background aggression, but it happened. And another norm that we added to that, to make it smoother, is the quality of the food. We brought homemade food to the restaurants to pick up the women from homes and convince them that, whatever we prepare here is as good as you do in your house. But now you can have some family time, some quality time with your family, and then leave some of the work for the next days.
That's a really good point, because traditionally, Armenian families dine at home. And but thank you for that, great change. On that topic, Lucina, I also wanted to understand how your policies impacted other businesses in Armenia. Do you feel like all the policies or changes or female empowerment within your organization somehow also impacts others? Are they trying to catch up with you? Are they objecting to those? Are they vocal about that? What are you seeing?
Thanks for this question. Before answering your question, some stats about women in our organization. So 47% of our employees are women. But we're working on this. And out of this 47%, 1/4 are in leadership roles. And again, we're working in this area. And promotion rate in our company is 35% for women. Way to go. And on top of that, I love the statistics. I also keep the numbers for how many families were created and still exist within our company. So we have more than 40 families, Yearman. We call them Yearman families that were just born in our company. So we partner both with private sector, with public sector, with international organizations, and the recent example is our partnership while we're in the UN building, partnership with the United Nations Food Program, World Food Program, and the reason we did that project, it's called Milk to Schools. And the reason we did that because we produce dairy products, and our products are one of the best in the quality. So basically we cover 85% of premium dairy products in Armenia. We wanted, on top of our business goals, vision, we wanted to give back to the society, to give back to our regions, our kids, particularly in remote areas, and promote healthy lifestyle, particularly for the mothers who are away from this, understanding of how health can really impact the education and the upbringing of children. And another example is, which you might find it really interesting. So a couple of years ago, we had this crazy idea of serving the largest Armenian gata. And we recorded it in a Guinness World Record as the largest Armenian gata ever prepared in the world.
And just to clarify for non-Armenian viewers, gata is a traditional Armenian dessert and pastry. Yeah.
We wanted that record to be sitting there for generations. A, as an Armenian pastry, and B, that we can, if we want, we can make it larger, bigger, tastier. But the most important thing is the outcome of this initiative. As a result, we opened our Yearman confectionery, Sweetland, under the leadership of the chef who prepared this gata. And she is now leading our confectionery, our Sweetland, with all the women working in that business. So we're very happy. It started with some very crazy, nice, beautiful idea, but it ended up having more women in business and more women appreciated for their beautiful ideas and hard and tasty hands.
One great idea leads to another, right? So amazing. So on that topic, Christina, because you're the producer of your show, right? What portion of your guests would you estimate are female, and do you prioritize diversity and inclusion when thinking about your guests, putting together the show? And do you have the power to make the choice?
Absolutely. So 10% of Fortune 500 CEOs are women. We have a long way to go. And the majority of my guests are CEOs of these Fortune 500 companies, so you can put the numbers there. Okay. However, I find it as the producer, not only just the face of it and the host of it, but as the producer, I make it my mission to highlight women. Like I previously mentioned, for Women's History Month, for Women's Entrepreneurship Day, even for thematic days or weeks or months that are non-woman related. For example, for Climate Week, do we have a women-led company that can speak on behalf of climate change, what they're doing to combat climate change? I always try to find ways to bring women in, but I hope we have more female founders.
Wonderful. Sona, can you tell me, talk to me about how your organization impacted women in Armenia over the years, and maybe bring specific examples. So do you focus on promoting women, empowering them. What is your sort of policy on gender equality?
In company itself, actually, we never applied to that policy because we have people who found it with us and they remain 16, 18 years. And they were chosen as a very enthusiastic young people. They were volunteers with us. Now they are on high positions and they lead, they talk to artists. Sometimes they come and give me much more information that I could imagine they have with celebrities, and I'm listening as a newcomer there, what they do, how it went. So, but I personally motivate young women quite much. And on the decision-making important points in their lives, I try to be as helpful as I can. And I'm sure it works because I talk to them, it's a public talks, it's a personal consultation, sometimes they ask for. I motivate greatly, and I know success of behind. And yes, they have, some of them, they have example in me. Because we went through a big path. There was a long way, full of successes and history. And also, I would like to say about something, Jeremiah, in addition, because I have facts.
Okay.
Whatever we do is a branding of our country, and those artists who are coming and then they express their admiration on their pages. Millions of people write about that, read about that. And we had the story with 50 Cent, and when his jet arrived to take him from Frankfurt, they brought from Frankfurt to fly to Tel Aviv. And they said, we don't want German food, we want Armenian food on the plane, because Yereman projects were organizing restaurant in the stadium, and once I was there, and they were with white gloves, so impressive, the waiters. I said, oh my God, this is stadium or high-class restaurant. And then I know our employees arranged with yours. During 40 minutes, they changed the whole food for the plane. And it was national, tasty food. And that was a small detail which remained in the memory and hearts of high-level musicians who are coming to our country. And yes, there are stories, and you truly deserve to be mentioned.
Thank you.
Amazing. I love the collaboration between the two female leaders right here. Thank you. Talk to me about what changes or initiatives would you like to see from public or private sectors to better meet the needs of women in your respective industries? And we can start with Renee.
I really love this question. What reminds me of this question is the concept of stakeholder capitalism. It's something that Bank of America truly believes in. And what is stakeholder capitalism? Is that companies not only need to serve the interests of their shareholders, but also the interests of the broader community, of the broader public. And why is this important? Is because they all thread the needle of how all of us together need to move forward. It's not just about a company's profits, because that's just great for the current generation you're in, but it's really about focusing on the future generations. That's where true long-term value lies. And so the collaborations that we've had at Bank of America continue to be public and private sector focused. I think what we believe in is that truthfully, the better you collaborate across a variety of industries, the better the outcomes will become. This thing that we say at work is that I'm not different from you, I'm different like you. And that applies for people, that applies for industries, it applies in every different type of way. Thank you. And specifically, I do want to make a plug of why equity funding is important. When you think about the spectrum of public grant funding, private grant funding, loans, debt, what you name it, what differentiates about equity is that it's a true long-term investment in a company that you're making. And when you do that, even investing in a fund, it's a 10-year, at least 10-year commitment that you have, that these fund managers are going to invest in companies. And at the fund manager level, when they look at companies being invested, you're not only giving them capital, you're giving them a network, you're giving them expertise. that's what really drives a small business to become the Googles, the Apples, the Costco, the Whole Foods. And by the way, all of those companies today have started with small equity funding. So you can just see the dividends that they pay right now.
Thank you. That's a really great point. Christina, do you want to talk about some of the policies you would like to, changes you would like to see in various sectors, or maybe in your sector?
Yeah, I'm starting out in my career. I've been in the workforce for roughly 4.5, 5 years. I would love to see more true mentorship and championing, being more than a mentor, being a sponsor, because I fully support the Women Helping Women movement. And I've been lucky to have great women sponsors, more than mentors, within my firm who have got me at the position I am today. And if it wasn't for, I'll name her Karen Snow, our Senior Vice President, I wouldn't be in the position that I am now at NASDAQ. And having experiences like that with those sponsors, with those women leaders, reminds me to pay it forward to the next generation. And the way I'm doing that personally right now is through Miss Armenia. I work a lot with displaced families and a lot with the bordering villages, families of the bordering villages in Armenia. And when those little girls look up to me saying, wow, I want that crown, I want to be like you, I want to be a queen, you know, you can. And my goal with this platform is, yes, you can be beautiful and you can be smart. You can feel confident and you can be smart. You can be both and you can do both.
Yelena, I would like to add something about sustainability, my intention to make our businesses independent, because, you know, fundraising is good, and in our local environment, there is a very interesting moment we are experiencing now. We had sponsors 20 years back. Remembering, they say you don't remember us, but we were sponsoring in 2003 one of the concerts of that. They're really tired. There is no tax policy to give them some privileges for doing that. Now the new format I offered them to work with us is a partnership. It's a new platform and it's very, very interesting process we are going through. And we have been working through 25 years, that's 4 governments, that's 3 presidents, 2 prime ministers, so many first ladies. We were in direct contact and work with all of them. That's a whole story to write a book. And, you know, trying to keep your independence and not being swallowed by any force, by both political and any kind of, could be, you know, you are dealing with mass, with thousands of people, and you are interesting your power, the soft power we call it, but it's interesting for any party. And we kept ourselves pure and independent, and now trying to create this self-sustainability also financially. This is very important.
Is this a new project, and what is the name of the project?
This is High-Up platform, and I would like to say recently I'm receiving letters from different Armenian celebrities from abroad. From Britain we got a letter from Kev Organ, the British Armenian comedian, also from the United States. And they are writing, we are so glad you have this platform in Armenia, we can join efforts and to make our country even more powerful, more beautiful, more branded. We do need branding now and rebranding too. So yes, that's very successful process and totally new process, which combines arts, culture and diplomacy and business altogether, what we have achieved during all our lives of past 20
I'm
years.
looking forward to checking in next year and see how things are going.
Yes, we'll do our best.
I just wanted to talk a little bit about mentoring, the importance of mentoring and networking, right? And you already touched upon it. Maybe, ladies, you want to talk about how important mentoring has been in your life, having a mentor and or being a mentor to someone else, and any interesting tips for networking effectively that others could use.
Yes, happy to. We mentioned finance is a male-dominated industry, but it's also relationship-driven. And so you can't be at the table by yourself. You have to have someone to shepherd you to the table. And I've been very fortunate to have many, many great mentors in my life, starting from my mother, who has told me to persevere, to keep going when things get tough. Of course, from the early days of investment banking, working many, many hours, she says to keep going, and that's something that I did, and it really opened the doors for people at work, especially women at work, who realized the potential in me, and so invested their time. A lot of it is just going up to them also and asking and saying, hello, can we grab coffee? And from there, you know, there are times where you don't feel a connection. There are other times where they see something in you and they want to continue those conversations. So I would say just go for it, knock on the door, and see where it takes you.
That's a really great suggestion.
Yeah, I would like to start talking about mentorship from one article that I read a couple of years ago, and I trust many of you have read this article, but it stuck in my head. It was an article about Margaret Mead. She's an anthropologist, and she was asked this basic question: when was the rise of civilizations? And I would think, before going through the article, that it's when you find the first pottery, when they excavated and found some, wooden equipment, etc. And what she said the rise of the first civilization when the thigh bone of a human being was healed. You would think, what is the connection between the thigh bone and a civilization? But this is amazing if you think about it. She said that during those days, 10,000 years ago, when there was no medicine, when people were just hunting to get some food, if you broke your thigh bone, there was no way you could survive. And what would usually happen, you would just be left by your own to die. But the mere fact that people cared about each other, there was an empathy, and they were healing each other, showing their humanity, that's when the first doors of civilization were opened. So that's when the communities were created. And when looking at it from that perspective, and then adding to what we do in our respective jobs, we as business, we very much are reliant on communities. We're very much reliant on the public sector, on government support, on people support, because we live, because we provide what we love so much to the people that we respect so much. That's how the synergies are created. And in terms of the one wisdom that I can give in terms of the mentorship is, I came to the realization based on my experience that all the women, irrespective of their social status, irrespective of their color, their wealth, they are all talented and powerful enough to be successful. However, there are two things that distinguish between these women in their path to get a success. That's patience and time. We are sometimes not patient enough, and this is the fifth P that I will add to my fourth piece that I discussed before, patience. Because at times, what I found, based on my experience, you are close to opening that door of success, but you just give up for whatever reason. And that's not the right, and like Lev Tolstoy, one of my beloved authors and philosophers, said, the most important equipment or warrior in the world, these are the two things, patience and time. They just move you with the most exponential, with the most fierce power than you would ever think about it. Yeah, that's the advice that I give to my mentees whenever we talk to each other.
Thank you, that's really great advice. And Sona, could you share one piece of advice or wisdom that you believe is crucial for other women to succeed?
We talk about taking risks, which are in the core of success. If you don't take those risks, you don't give that freedom to your creativity and mind and fly, you can't get to that height. So be fearless. That's for all girls, all women, even for boys. Why not? I don't want to underestimate men and say, you know, we are so special, and sometimes they need protection, not us. But it's our natural gift to be so flexible, so problem solving. It's a gift we have to use for society's well-being. And I felt so many interactions when they were saying how you are taking those risks, why you are doing this. And I was hearing that from very well-established men. I don't talk about boys or girls, but that was the reason for success. To be fearless and to believe that you can do that. And that's good. That's a blessed idea. And if you don't do that, no one will else do. So that's the advice I would say from my personal experience and from the whole processes which were feeling on our skin.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Be fearless, be patient. You know, there are so many great tips. And my last question, but I need a quick response, Lucina Jean, because then we have to open up to our audience. Just tell us maybe quickly what's next for Yereman projects. I know you have expansion goals, interesting projects in the pipeline. To the extent you can share.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So we Yereman projects collected this unique arsenal of knowledge, skills in so many domains, in agriculture, in hospitality, in vocational education. We have the systems of excellence. We have lots of talented people. So we want to go beyond the borders of Armenia. We want to expand in the Middle East and the United States and create this Armenian brand of dairy products that everyone would just buy from the supermarkets and taste it and say, wow, this comes from the Armenian Alpine highlights. Or Armenian restaurants where we will have this amazing food, but it's not only about the food, it's about the food diplomacy. It's about the culture, it's about bringing us and putting more emphasis on who we are, where we come from and where we go.
So are we going to see an Armenian restaurant in New York? That's my question.
Hopefully very soon. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, ladies. This was an amazing conversation. Let's give a round of applause.
Before we close our session today, our panel discussion today, I would like to invite Emma Arakelian, who is AIWA UN leader, and an entrepreneur and a supporter of all Armenian women events and other events. I would like to invite Emma to the microphone. She has a little surprise to for our panelists. Emma, could you please come up?
This is powerful, illustrious, accomplished, and well thought through responses that you had. This panel is not about sharing what they have done, what they are saying, what they are going to do. What they are saying is you can do it too. And with that, for that reason, I'm going to actually put you in a group of women leaders that I call them. You are a leader and you are leading with lifestyle. So leadership to you is not a role. Leadership to you is not just a title. Leadership to you is not just an authority, because your stories were from start to finish, from childhood all the way to here, with perseverance but also with a vision. So for that reason, I am here to give my book to you as a gift, to share with you that you have accomplished that skill. You feel it from your heart, and you feel it as an experienced professional CEO, or all of you. Just dream, get there, and do it. So the title of the book is The Business Caring Formula, Building Your new leadership lifestyle. So this book could be for your mentees because you have a lot you have accomplished and maybe some new examples. So to leaders for who leadership is a lifestyle. You think, you dream, you act, you start your day, you finish your day as a leader. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much, Emma, for this nice surprise. Again, on behalf of Armenian International Women Association, UN, and Armenian International Women Association Global, as well as Armenian International Women Greater New York affiliate, I would like to wholeheartedly thank to all our panelists and moderator for this very insightful, great session, discussion that they have, and to thank all of you, our guests, who made the time to come and be part of this discussion. Thank you very much and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.